So as a ETL developer, mainly we'll be developing three components: mapping, session, workflow. So how do you create this mapping? Means with the help of PowerCenter Designer.
Okay.
So PowerCenter Designer is consisting 5 components called as a source analyzer, target designer, mapping designer, Mapleton Designer, and transformation developer.
Okay.
So already we have discussed up to target designer. So I'm going with the next one called as mapping designer. So what is this mapping designer means? This tab is
Build map.
used to create ETL mapping object. You can create the mappings with the help of this particular tab.
Mm-hmm.
So what is mapping? This object explains about the flow of data from source to target. From source to target through transformation objects. See here, source will not communicate to the target directly. In between these two, definitely we will have some transformations. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
So this flow is explained with the help of mapping. So this mapping consists only the structures, only formulas. It will not consist any records. Just it explains from where you should read, what type of logics you should perform, where to write. That's all.
Okay.
So already you know about what is source. Source means from it is an object from where we will read the data. You know
Yes.
about the target. It is an object from where we will write the data.
Mm-hmm.
And new thing is transformation object.
Okay. Transforms. So transformation basically we do mapping, right?
In mapping, we'll have transformation objects.
Okay.
So what is the transformation object means? It is used to define required business logic.
Okay.
Like calculations. Maybe you're having quantity and you're having price. You want to get the amount. So you can do that calculation. Maybe you want to do the aggregations. Maybe total amount sold, total quantity sold, something like that. Maybe you want to filter some data. Maybe you want to implement joins. Maybe you want to implement merge. Maybe you want to search various things. It is not possible to do all these things in one object. For each like calculations, you'll have one transformation. Like for example, expression for that. For performing aggregation, there is an aggregator. For filter purpose, there is something called as filter transformation or router transformation. For join purpose, you're writing joiner. For merge purpose, you're writing union. For searching purpose, there is a lookup. Like different transformation objects are there based on the activity what you want to do.
Okay.
Choose those transformations and define your required logics within them.
Okay.
So as this in this example, so I told that there is a source object, there is an target object. In between that, I'm having some transformations.
Yeah.
So with these transformations, I'm asking to perform some calculations, something like calculating gross salary. Okay.
Okay.
So this is what mapping designer. Next, Maplet designer. This tab is used to create a maplet. So what is maplet? It is a reusable business object. It is a reusable business object. So it can be used into set of mappings or maybe into other maplets.
Okay.
It is a reusable business object. Maplet can be reused in multiple mappings or maplets. You can use into other maplets or into the mappings. For example, in your business activity, in this example, what I showed on top, I am calculating gross salary. Very simple calculation, maybe salary plus commission is nothing but a gross salary, isn't it?
Yes.
But sometimes there will be complicated logics may be there. Like maybe I want to search for the particular information in one particular table. If available, I need to pick up something from there and I need to go for another table. I need to search for some other data, pick up some values from there. Based on that, I want to perform some calculations. So like this, if you are having, maybe it is not like one transformation object, maybe at 10 transformations or 20 transformations you have to use to define that required logics. Maybe sometimes, isn't it? If the complex
Yes.
logics if you're having. At the
Yes.
same time, you want to maybe read some data from source tables as well as you want to search for something and you want to do these calculations. So sources and transformations approximately, for example, nearly you have placed 50 to 60 objects you have placed to design a particular logic. Successfully, it is working. But the same logic is required again and again in your project. Nearly with 50 objects, you have designed some logic and the same logic is required again and again within your project. Maybe same business activity is there for more than one time. So you need that. So if you design everything in the mapping, in mapping what you kept, I cannot reuse into some other place. It is not possible. So I force to redesign that entire logic by placing 50 transformations. But if you do like that, so much time will be wasted. Even though entire logic is ready with you, you are forced to redesign it because of the time will be wasted, isn't it?
Yes.
You may say why you want to redesign, you can say copy and paste. Yes, definitely you can do that. So time will reduce, development time will reduce. But you're running as a second copy, isn't it? When you say copy and paste, that is a separate copy, separate entity. So that means it is present in the memory separately. So it occupies separate space again, isn't it?
Yes.
So it occupies more space. At the execution time, it takes a lot of time because you're having more memory or using it. And in the maintenance, if you want to make any changes in that logic, how many copies you have made, you have to go for each and every copy and you have to make the change, isn't it?
Yes.
So if the person who is making changes, if he knows that the copy is there nearly for 10 times or 20 times, he has to go for each and every location, he has to make the change. But if it doesn't do like that, if it makes change in only in one area, in other things he is not concentrated, the entire business process may goes into the wrong way. So to avoid that problem, create that as a maplet. Place all the 50 transformations and make that as a maplet. Use this maplet wherever you need the same logic. So logic is present only one time. You're developing only one time and you're simply calling it to another list, just like a functions. So the productivity time will not be reduced, like a developer product time, you are not decreasing it. Next, maintenance part, if you make a change in the maplet, it affects to all the mappings wherever you use that maplet. No need to go for each and every mapping separately, isn't it?
Yes.
So this is an advantage what you're having with the maplet. So if you think that a particular logic is required again and again in your project, instead of keeping in the mapping directly, create that as a maplet and call that into mapping area. Clear?
Yes.
Maplet cannot be executed directly. It is not possible. You have to call that into another mapping or into another maplet. Directly, it is not possible to execute the maplet. It will not have any destinations. Maplet will not support target tables. It can have sources and transformations. That's all. So you want to write something into the target table, you should have definitely mapping. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Is it clear?
Yes, clear.
Transformation developer. This tab is used to create custom transformation objects. Custom transformation object. That means user defined transformation objects with the help of C or C++ or Java language. So you want to create your own transformation object, then you go with the transformation developer. Clear?
Yes.
So mostly in work environment, you will not use this transformation developer. Definitely the first four components will use it. Source analyzer, target designer, mapping designer, maplet designer.
Okay.
So this is what PowerCenter designer. Okay.
Okay.
So once your mapping is ready, next thing is what we need to create a session, or maybe you have to create a workflow, isn't it?
Yeah, workflow. Yeah.
So that is not possible under PowerCenter designer. I should go with another application called as PowerCenter Workflow
Manager.
Manager. PowerCenter Workflow Manager. PowerCenter Workflow Manager. What is this? It is a client side GUI application used to design or used to create workflows. Okay.
Okay.
Now in the PowerCenter designer, around 5 tabs are there: source analyzer, target designer, mapping designer, mapper designer, transformation developer. In the similar way, in PowerCenter workflow manager is providing 3 tabs.
Okay.
It is providing 3 tabs, or maybe you say as an components. What are those means? Task developer, workflow designer, worklet designer. three things. So if you take the first one, task developer. This tab is used to create reusable tasks. This tab is used to create reusable tasks. That means the tasks which are created in task developer the tasks which are created in task developer can be used in multiple workflows or worklets. So you can use it in any workflow or in any worklet. Okay.
Okay.
So here I told that we can create the task. So what type of tasks can be created in this task developer? Means mainly three type of tasks are available here. Task developer supports to create tasks like session, email, command. Like these three things are there. So which are the thing you need in your process, in your retail process, you create that related object.
Okay.
So as per my example, what I defined on the top, I'm not using any email or I'm not using any command. Just I'm having a session, mapping session workflow. So session is sufficient in some cases. Maybe in some
Yes.
cases, maybe you need to go with an email as well as command also. So what is this session? It is a task object used to set or specify connectivity details related to source, target, transaction type, commit intervals, uh, error logs, etc. Like various things you can do. So you can
Okay.
set the session parameters, you can tell about the cache management, whether you need is an incremental cache or not. So all these set of options you can specify here.
Okay.
So what, like in your mapping, what is the source you're having? That source will be visible under the session. So for that, you will be giving the connectivity and you will be telling what is the transaction type for your target, whether you want to insert or update or delete, what you want to do. These type of things you can tell with respect of mapping. So already I told that session is created for the particular mapping object.
Yes.
So only for the objects what you're doing in a mapping, in the respect to mapping, only for those things you can give the connectivity details or maybe the transaction types you can specify.
Okay.
So if you create this session being a task developer, that becomes as a reusable session task. Similarly, email task. This task is used to send notification messages maybe your session is failure, maybe your session is executed successfully. So these type of messages you want to send to the concerned departments, then you can use this email object.
Okay.
Command this task is used to execute command are used to call or execute command prompt or what to say command prompt of operating system. So as for Windows environment, command prompt means nothing but CMD.
Okay.
So this is the command prompt. Okay.
Yes.
So this you can call this. What is use of it? Maybe you can execute some operating system commands. Maybe you can execute the files which can be executed from the command prompt. Maybe you want to execute the scripting files. For such type of purpose, I can call this command prompt.
Okay.
If it is Unix environment, we will say terminal.
Okay.
See, the command prompt terminal will open and there it will execute the commands what you have specified. So you want to execute the operating system commands, then you can use this command option or command task. Okay.
Okay.
So it is used to execute operating system commands or scripting files or executable files. So executable file as per Windows environment is an exe, batch file, com file, ini file. As per Unix environment, it may be OUT file, tjet file. Such type of files can be executed if it is Unix environment. Clear?
Yes.
So these three type of things you can create being a task developer. But if you create a session or an email or a command, any one of these things in the task developer, they becomes as a reusable. So you can
Okay.
create multiple session objects, you can create multiple email objects, you can create multiple command objects depending on the requirement. Workflow designer. This tab is used to create a workflow. This tab is used to create a workflow. So what is a workflow? It is an object used to integrate set of Etl components, or it used to define Etl process with a set of components. Okay.
Okay.
So here Etl components means they may be a sessions, maybe email, maybe a command. Any one of these things can be used, or all together also can be placed.
Okay.
So Etl components means I'm talking about something like sessions, maybe emails, maybe commands, etc. Set of business activities. Like for example, you're running one session for loading customers data, one session for loading products data, one session for loading times data. So all these three things you can integrate as one bigger application as a project. Clear?
Yes.
The tasks which are created in task developer tab can be used in the workflow. It looks like a shortcut or a reference copy. So it is present in the task developer. So you are using that into the workflow. That means you'll have a reference to the task developer location. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Next. Is it mandatory to create these tasks only in the task developer and you should access into workflow? Means no. You can create being in the workflow also.
Okay.
Workflow will also support to create set of tasks. You can create the task being in the workflow also, but these tasks can be used within same workflow only.
Okay.
That means you cannot use into another workflow. If you create a session object being in a workflow, that can be used within the same workflow. You cannot use outside of it. That means it becomes like a local.
Okay.
If you create in task developer, I can use into multiple workflows. No need to create it again and again. But if you create in a workflow, for another workflow, if you need the same session, I need to create it again because I can't reuse it. Okay.
Okay.
That is non-reusable. But first of all, what are the tasks you can create here? I told that task developer is supporting three things: session, email, and command, isn't it?
Yes.
Workflow is supporting to create various type of tasks, like what are those means? Session. So you can create the session in task developer or you can create in workflow also. Similarly, email, this can be created task developer, can be created in workflow also. Command, this can be created in task developer, can be created in workflow also.
Okay.
Next, event wait, event raise, timer, what is that, decision, assignment, worklet, etc. Like this type of task can be created being within your workflow. So task developer is supporting only three things, but here various other types of tasks can also be created. Clear?
Yes.
But if you create, they becomes as a non-reusable. That means they can be used within the same workflow only. Into another workflow, it is not possible by default. If you want, even though you have created in workflow designer, but you want to use it into other workflows, then you have to convert that as a reusable first of all. Later you can use it to other workflows also. But when you when you convert it into reusable, automatically that will be visible under task developer.
Okay.
Worklet Designer. This tab is used to create a worklet. So what is worklet? It is a reusable workflow. It is a reusable workflow.
Okay.
For example, I created one workflow. This workflow is consisting something called as a start. Here I'm having one session object. For example, I'm giving the name as an S1. Maybe it is trying to load customers data, for example. Similarly, I'm having one more session object. Maybe it is loading the products data. I'm having one more session object. Maybe it is loading stores data. Maybe I'm having one more session object which is loading revenue data. Something like this. Some sessions are there.
Okay.
So this entire thing we are calling as a workflow. So you can have only one session object or maybe multiple session objects, but not only session, you can have even other objects what I mentioned in the previous tabs like email, command, event raise, event wait. All these type of tasks can also be placed. But right now I'm showing as an example with only sessions. But even other objects can be placed. Clear?
Yes.
Similarly, I'm having second workflow. So I'm having a second workflow. And this workflow is also having S1, S2, S3, same sessions what I used in workflow 1.
Yes.
So if you create these objects within the workflow designer, that means indirectly you are creating for more than one time, isn't it?
Yes.
So if I want to make any changes later, like in S1, I need to make some changes. I should go to the workflow 1 and I have to make the changes. Similarly, I should go to workflow 2 and there also I should make the changes, isn't it?
Yes.
So instead of designing in this way, what is the common thing is there? I want to separate it. So I'm creating one object called as WL, for example, and which is consisting something called as, which is a common thing is there. I'm trying to place within this. So common thing is up to S3 session, isn't it?
Yes.
After that, I'm creating workflow 1. I'm creating workflow 1, and in this workflow, I'm having a start. So workflow 1 means I need to have S1, S2, S3, S4. I thought that I won't have S1, S2, S3, S4, but S1, S2, S3 is already available in the form of WL, isn't it?
Yes.
So I'll call the WL object here. After that, but it is only having up to S3, but I need S4 also. So I'll
Yes.
place S4 here.
Okay.
So what is WL object is already available. That object I'm calling to this particular location.
Okay.
Similarly, if I create the second workflow, Here also I'm trying to place a start object. Next I need workflow, that is S1, S2, S3. So which is already available for in the form of WL. So I'll call that WL. After that, I'll try to have S5. So the same WL object which is defined one time, I'm calling that into this particular location also. Clear?
Didn't get so much the WL,
Which one?
the second one. Can you repeat it again for the WL and WF one that you start with the joint with S4?
So here in the first part, workflow one is consisting 4 sessions, S1, S3, S3, S4, isn't it?
Yes.
Similarly, second workflow is consisting S1, S2, S3, and S5.
Yes.
So S1, S2, S3 is repeated in for 2 times, isn't it?
Yes.
So I thought that I don't want to repeat like that, because if in future if you want to make any changes, I should go to both workflows and should make the changes, which is difficult. Right now we are doing
Yes.
only 2, but in work environment maybe 30, 40 may be repeated like this, isn't it?
Yes.
So what I did means in the second part, what is the common thing is there, I separated it and I saved it as a separate component called on the name WL.
Okay.
S1, S2, S3 is a common for workflow 1 and workflow 2. So I separated it and I saved it as a WL,
Okay.
as a separate object. After that, I'm creating first workflow. Within that workflow, I call the WL. So WL is nothing but S1, S2, S3. After that, I'm having S4.
Okay. Okay.
So indirectly, WF1 in the second part is nothing but S1, S2, S3, S4, because WL is nothing but S1, S2, S3, isn't it?
Okay. Yes. Yes. Now I got it.
Same way, second part, WF2 also. I'm having first of all WL, after that S5. So WL is nothing but S1, S2, S3, means indirectly rank S1, S2, S3, and S5 in the second workflow too, isn't it?
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
calling the
Yeah.
same WL object into second workflow. So in future, if you want to make any changes in S1, S2, S3, if you do it in WL, that will reflect to workflow 1 as well as workflow 2, isn't it?
Yes.
So no need to go for workflow 1 and workflow 2 separately, because they doesn't have S1, S2, S3 separately. They are having within WL. So if you make any changes in WL, that will reflect to W1, WF1 as well as WF2. So what is this WL
Yes.
means?
So now.
It is nothing but worklet.
Okay.
It is a worklet. It is also looking like a workflow only, isn't it?
Yes. Yes.
That's what I told, reusable workflow. That worklet is accessed into
Okay.
WF1 as well as WF2. You
Okay.
cannot execute the worklet directly. It should be embedded into the any workflow, and through that only you have to execute it.
Okay.
So in the work environment, we'll be using workflows as well as worklets. Both will present in the work environment.
Okay.
What about task developer? Maybe some cases you may use the task developer, but not mandatory, because all those objects can
Okay.
be created directly within the workflow as well as in the worklet. So clear?
Yes. Clear.
So by this, workflow manager is completed.
Okay.
But once the mapping is ready, session is ready, workflow is ready, the next thing you should execute them. So when execute a workflow is consisting session. So session will execute. Session is internally consisting mapping. That means mapping will execute. Mapping is internally consisting source table, target table with the transformation. So it will read the data from source, apply the logics, and write the data to the target. Clear?
Okay. Yes.
But that executions, you can give that execute instruction from PowerCenter workflow manager, but execution will not happen there. Execution will happen in another
Okay.
location. At the server side, it will happen, called as an integration service. there is something called as an integration service. Execution will happen here.
Okay.
As an ETL developer, for you, no need to say that I will to go for integration service and all those things. Being workflow manager, simply you can say start the execution.
Okay.
Because already your folder will be configured internally with the integration service. So it goes to the respective integration service, and from there it will execute automatically.
Okay.
But you should have an idea that execution is happening at the server side with the help of integration service.
Yes.
That means your integration service will tries to read the data from specified source, applies the logics, and writes the data to the target.
Okay.
So complete ETL process is done at the integration service only. But how it knows that it should read from source, it should read particular source, how it knows it should write into particular target, that is explained by the mapping. So when you execute your workflow is consisting session is consisting mapping. So integration service will collect the information from the mapping, session, and workflow. Based on that, it will ask to execute.
Okay.
But once execution is completed, maybe it will be successful, maybe it is in failure. There is a possibility.
Yes.
So the end user who is executing that workflow, you should have an idea whether that execution is success or failure. If it is a failure, what is the reason for that failure? Maybe management want to know on which day you are executed, who is the user executed that particular execution, all this set of thing. That means I should
Yes.
maintain the log data, log details. So
Okay.
integration service is also responsible to maintain the log data at the server side within a files. But to do all these things, it is having subcomponents: reader, writer, and third component, reader, writer, and transformation manager, something like that.
Okay.
So with these three components, it will perform the task. But those three components, what exactly they are, how they will perform, so we'll take it in the next class. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
So almost the PowerCenter components are completed.
Okay.
So just will give the information about integration service, and I'll mention other service names simply. And after that, we'll go for what are the steps to be followed for developing ETL process.
Okay.
So as an ETL developer, what are the steps to be implemented? Maybe one-time activity steps. What are the day-to-day activity steps? Something like that.
Okay.
So I'll give all the list of steps, one-time activity steps separately, and day-to-day activity steps, and I'll show them practical one by one. So one-time
Okay.
activity steps in your system also you have to do only for one time. It is not required again and again. But ETL steps based on the scenario, that steps we have to implement.
Okay.
So next class I'll start with that.